Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our second Playing for Positive Progress. And I am Lily Prigioniero. I'm the director of the American Roots Folk House. Now it's a virtual folk house. I think it's important also to give these musicians that are a voice, that are a part of American musical history, developed by immigrants coming together from all over the world on a common ground. During this time of political turmoil and civil unrest, we all need to do our best to give a voice to a positive direction in our history. And we need to focus our energies on peace and justice in order to overcome this dark cloud that has been hovering over a nation. There's Sophie, who's hiding behind her poster, and that's her mom, Anna. And Dad is behind the technical part of our Zoom event. That's Greg Bernstein, behind the scenes. And we are really rooting for Sophie's future, because that's what it's all about, being positive. Thanks, Sophie. And thanks, Anna.
Hi, everybody. This is Matt Callahan, and I am Yvonne Moore. We're playing a couple of songs, as Lily already said, from our program, Working Class Heroes. And it's the working class that has to bring their power back. We're starting with There Is Mean Things Happening in This Land.
This is an old song that was written by John Hancock, who was an organizer of the Southern Tenant Farmers Union in the 1930s. He wrote many songs that became classics in the labor movement and the civil rights movement from the 30s onward. But this one could have been written yesterday. It's called There Is Mean Things Happening in This Land.
There is mean things happening in this land. There is mean things happening in this land. Oh, the rich man boasts and brags while the poor man goes in rags. There is mean things happening in this land. Oh, yeah. There is mean things happening in this land. There is mean things happening in this land. Oh, the farmer cannot eat 'cause he's raised too much wheat. There is mean things happening in this land. Oh yeah, I said there is mean things happening in this land. There is mean things happening in this land. Too much cotton in our sacks, so we have none on our backs. There is mean things happening in this land. Oh yeah! There is mean things happening in this land. There is mean things happening in this land. Lots of groceries on the shelves, but we have none for ourselves. There's mean things happening in this land. Oh yeah! There is mean things happening in this land. There is mean things happening in this land. But when workers all refuse to be blinded and abused, there'll be good things happening in this land. Let me hear you say it. There'll be good things happening in this land. There'll be good things happening in this land. When stand and unite in a solid band, there'll be good things happening in this land. When the workers take a stand and unite in a solid band, there'll be good things happening in this land.
All right.
Here, I'm mainly here as a friend of Lily and an ardent supporter of President to be Biden, and someone who, having had the privilege of representing the United States in another country, is so dismayed, just so sad to see where the United States stands in the world today, and how dramatically the United States is letting down the people of the world today. And I feel, mentioning sadness, I have to also just mention also my deep sadness at the passing of such an incredible hero, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who in many ways personifies the concept of soft power. That is something that people talk about in the context of diplomacy and culture. It was a term actually invented by Joseph Nye of Harvard University, but what it means is the power of attraction and influence that comes from being a model, from being a person or a country or an entity that stands for something and acts in a way that people admire. And it's talked about in juxtaposition to hard power, which is trade sanctions or military might. And the thing about soft power is you can't just say, I am going to do soft power. You have to actually be a model. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the way she lived her life, fighting for equality, first for women, but really for everyone, fighting using her incredible mind and just hard work, case after case, is such a model, I think, for people all over America, and I do believe people all over the world. And that's what the United States, I am sorry to say, has lost, is being a model. And I hope it's something that we can regain through our actions, not our words. Words aren't enough, through our actions under President-to-be Biden. But let me just take you back a little bit in time and give you a sense of at least my vision of how culture interacts with diplomacy. I came to the position of being the U.S. ambassador to the Netherlands under President Clinton in 1998 with an unusual background for this. I was an art historian. And we have a system in the United States where people are appointed from private life to be ambassador if you are someone who the president knows, and theoretically if you help them get elected. So my husband and I, by just a fluke social gathering, had the great privilege of knowing President and Secretary Clinton personally before he ran. So we helped him because we believed in him very much. We helped him get elected, and as something I never expected, I was appointed to be the ambassador to the Netherlands. Now, an ambassador in a country, and I suspect this is true for other countries, has three main purposes. You are meant to support the acceptance of your country's policies in the country. You are to support commercial and other kinds of interactions between America and the host country, in my case, the Netherlands, and you support American citizens in that country. Well, I did a lot of stuff having to do with politics. It was a very dramatic time. We had the indictment of Milosevic, we had the Lockerbie trial, we had the Kosovo War, we had a Kyoto Protocol meeting, a lot going on. But I also did a lot with culture. And I found a couple of things. First of all, I found the saying that of Wole Soyinka, the Nigerian Nobel Prize winning playwright, culture humanizes, politics demonizes. I found that to be absolutely true. And I found that culture was a very effective tool in the context of diplomacy. I also found that the State Department didn't take it very seriously. And that is something that I tried to change while I was ambassador and have continued to try to change in the ensuing 20 years through my teaching and project work around the world and my publications. And let me just give you a sense of what I mean when culture being effective in diplomacy. We all know about the jazz, I think many people know about the jazz diplomats who traveled in the Cold War period, many of whom were African American, Louis Armstrong, Dizzy Gillespie, traveling around the world, playing their music. But there was something which everyone loved, and they not only performed in sort of fancy halls, but they also would insist on jamming with local musicians. And if there wasn't already a provision for it, they insisted on doing a public free concert. So they not only brought their music, they brought very core concepts of democracy and another very core concept of democracy, which is dissent and criticism of authority. So think of it. You have in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, jazz musicians traveling the world at the time of the peak of the Jim Crow era. So they are welcomed as heroes wherever they go. But in the United States, they very often couldn't even go in the front door of a theater where they were performing because they were African American. Now, their job wasn't to give a speaking tour on segregation, but if they were ever asked about their life in the United States, they spoke very openly about it. And their audiences, and we have this documented, were so impressed by this. They said, we can see this isn't just a slogan that the United States says, freedom of speech. They actually allow it. And here we have these people who are funded by the US government, and they're criticizing the US government. And they're not getting put in jail the way we would here. They're getting put on an airplane to go somewhere else and do the same thing. You know, so this must be real. So I think they show not only the power of music to connect, which we're experiencing today, but also the importance of dissent and criticism as really the most patriotic act, something our current president hasn't the faintest clue about. And so I actually, in 2000, was still able to use jazz in the context of the Netherlands. I organized, every year the Netherlands hosts the largest indoor jazz festival in the world. In my time, it was located right across the street in The Hague. The embassy had never had any contact with it. Now, a large portion of the performers were Americans. So I said, why don't we do something? And somebody said, well, we can get you tickets. I said, no, let's do something. So we organized, and it became an annual event, a jam session, a jazz jam session between the musicians who had come, the American musicians, and Dutch jazz musicians, many of whom weren't performing at the festival. So we had this intersection jam session at the embassy. We invited people of all ranks and all types, from, you know, our Marines in the military who were just privates, to students, to government ministers, everybody. Everybody wore blue jeans. It was a very informal event. But I could leverage it further. And one year, the Dutch were honoring Chicago and Chicago jazz. So I invited the mayor of Chicago, Richard Daley, then, to come with his wife, Maggie. They went all over the country. They did business for Chicago. They spoke about, you know, how important jazz was to Chicago's identity. It also happened to be the 25th anniversary of the Jazz Festival. So I got President Clinton to write a letter of congratulations, which means that I wrote the letter and got someone in the White House to okay it. But that was huge news in the Netherlands. It was a front page story. And they put it in every program for the Jazz Festival. And then finally, my role, I thought the most important thing, I didn't need to tell the Dutch that they needed to like jazz. They already like it more than Americans do. But what I could do was to remind people what was American about jazz. And the idea that this music that involves risk taking, that involves an individual going out and the group joining in a harmony, but all about really taking risks and the individual standing out and then being joined by the group, and improvisation, how American those characteristics were. So that when my Dutch guests would go to the jazz festival or listen to jazz, maybe just a little thing would go on in their mind saying, huh, you know, this is something American, and hopefully be positive associations. Now, there are places in the world today where music is still tremendously important for communicating ideas and messages. I happen to be working in one of them, Mali, on the west coast of Africa, which you may have noticed has just undergone a revolution. Well, in Mali, a largely oral society, people communicate about the past, present, the future through music. People tell the politicians what they want through music. So now, in a very different time than 20 years ago when I was ambassador, it's not a moment for us to send American musicians around, or certainly not to Mali. They have the greatest musicians in the world. The role, I believe, of the United States and Italy and many European countries is to leverage those local voices, to use our skills in production, distribution, marketing, to enable those local voices to maximize their reach to their publics, because their messages are the messages that people need to hear. And it comes in a lot of different forms, not just music, also theater. In the Belarus revolution right now, it is women, and often women cultural leaders, who are at the forefront of this revolution. And the Belarus Free Theater, who we've hosted at Georgetown, has been fighting against Lukashenko for a decade. So artists, I believe, are the canaries in the coal mine. They are really leading forces for social change, and we should support them. I want to give a shout out to Italy for the wonderful things Italy has done, actually sometimes cleaning up our messes a bit, in an area that Italy is very skilled at, and that is in restoration. That is, of course, Lily's own skill. And in the wake of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, it was Italians who led the efforts to restore the antiquities, to restore the museums, to train and work with the local restoration experts and archaeologists and art experts to help repair the damage done, I'm sorry to say, by America's wars. I'm just going to wind up by saying today it's interesting to know that Italy has become part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, which kind of has a cultural veil but is largely economic. And Italy's done this, as I understand it, for economic reasons. But I feel there's another reason, and that's the absence of the United States. And the complete just absence of the United States on the world stage, and really everything I talked about. You know, who's speaking out for the people of Belarus who are trying to overthrow this terrible dictator? I hope the EU is going to impose sanctions and take a leadership role, but the United States is completely absent. And we've been absent to even worse in Italy, like, you know, antagonizing people, criticizing people. So I just can't emphasize how important it is to have these gatherings to support the election of Joe Biden, so that we can again return to the United States being not perfect. We've never been perfect, and certainly the last few months have shown us we have a lot of work to do, but nonetheless a values-led country that is always trying to improve itself, and that is a partner to others in the world. Thanks.
Hey there. That was great, Cynthia. That very inspiring talk and information. And thank you for everything you've done in the past. That's wow. And you too, Lily. And thanks for having me here today. I'm coming from Norfolk, Virginia. Just kind of coming off of what Cynthia was talking about. It's very synergistic because the first tune I want to play for you is one that was made famous by Nina Simone. Anyway, this song is one she made famous. It's called I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free. It was written by another great black musician, jazz musician, Billy Taylor. Well, I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all these chains holding me. I wish, oh, I really wish this. I wish I could say all the things that I could say. All the ones, you know, when you're thinking and you go, I wish I'd said that. Things I should say. Say 'em loud, say 'em clear, for the whole wide world to hear. I wish I could share all the love in my heart. I'd remove all the bars that keep us apart. And I wish you could know how it feels to be me. Then you see and agree that every man should be free. I wish I could give all the love in my heart. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things I should do, 'cause I'm way overdue. I should be starting anew. I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found I could fly. I'd soar to the sun and look down at the sea. Then I'd sing, 'cause I'd know. I'd sing, 'cause I know. I'd sing, 'cause I know how it feels to be free.
beautiful. So playing for future, and I really sincerely hope it just is so important that we fight for Sophie's future and everybody's future.